Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers live on the Voice of College Football Network. I am Tucker Harlan alongside Jordan Binkley here on the channel. Happy to have all of you guys along with us. If you are new here to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football, please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. We are live Mondays at 8 Eastern Time. We have been live for post-game shows, but we'll only have one more of those this year, so check us out when that happens after the bowl game. But tell a friend about us. Tell your neighbors about us. Tell everybody about us. We would really appreciate it. As you can see, Jordan and I are not alone tonight, at least for the first 30 minutes. We have a very special guest with us. We are now, I believe, 3/4 of the way complete through the Rocky Top Insider Circuit. We had Ryan Shumpert on back in, I guess that was the first week of July. Rick Butler sometime, maybe a few weeks after that. And then for our first show of December, it's crazy. It's already our first show of December. We have Ryan Sylvia with us. Ryan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on. I got an easy one to talk about. It's not like we got to prepare for New Mexico State or UAB or something. We got plenty of talking points. That should be fun.
Poor Dan Harrelson. We had him on for New Mexico State.
So good luck, buddy.
that was a weird in between. You're coming off a bye week and getting ready for New Mexico State. Not really a whole lot to discuss there, but no, we do have quite a bit to discuss tonight, Ryan, because we are through another Tennessee football regular season. And I want to start with what is kind of a generic question. I know we don't love the generic questions here, but the three of us have watched enough Tennessee football to know that this is not the worst Tennessee football season ever. But I mean, you look at the results from this season. We talked about it before the show, and Jordan and I have talked about this in the past. It's just not anything spectacular this year. And I think this season, especially with it being year 5 of the Josh Heupel era, you are leaving with, I think, some more worries about the future of this program. So, Ryan, just what is your honest assessment of this season for Tennessee?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that it's their worst season under Josh Heupel. Like, if you just look at the record, it's not obviously that's 2021 when you go 7-5, 7-6. If you're counting, the controversial loss in the Music City Bowl, if he was forward progress stopped and all that, not to reopen that, all of those wounds for Tennessee fans. But if you just look at preseason expectations, I think this is, I guess you could say there was pretty high expectations too coming off that 2022 season, and then you go 8-4 that year as well. But this one, I guess, just feels a little different because it's not year 3, it's year 5, and that does feel like a significant step, even though it's just been 2 seasons. And the other part of it too is, I think if you told a lot of Tennessee fans right after Nico left, and even after they got Joey, or even just a couple weeks heading into the season, like, hey, UT's going to go 8-4 next year, and they're going to win in the swamp. I think a lot of people would have taken it on paper, but you see how close they were in that Georgia game. You see how avoidable the mistakes were in the Oklahoma game, in a game that felt like they should have won. And then you see how winnable that Alabama game even felt on the road, despite what that final score ended up looking like. And then obviously this last week with the inexcusable home loss, we were saying before the show started, it doesn't matter who you're playing in Neyland Stadium. You can't lose by 21 points to anyone. The best college football team of all time, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose to your in-state rival by 21 points at home. That kind of just leaves a very sour taste, I think, in everyone's mouth. So to me, it's the most disappointing season of the Heupel era so far. But at the same time, it was one of the younger teams in the SEC. And I think that gives you some hope when you kind of turn the page to next season, when you look at some of the things that are exciting to see in this bowl game is, okay, well, Jaden Perlotti, Idris Farouk, just to name 2 guys off the top of your head that stepped up and played really well on the defensive side. What are they going to look like next year? Because then I think that makes you a little optimistic about where things are going forward for Heupel.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a season where you've had a lot of younger guys get in, and you bring up a good point. The 8-4 thing is something that I think a lot of us looking at this team would have said, yeah, that would have been just fine, because you assume going into the year maybe the offense is just good enough. But, coming into last season, we thought the defense would be something that would be a strength of this team, and that was not at all the case. And I've run the numbers on this. I've confirmed with, I guess, the ESPN stats, which do lie sometimes, by the way, but these are at least the numbers I came up with. In SEC play, Tennessee scored the most points of anybody with 274. But they gave up the third most in the conference at 269. And that's all in SEC play. Now, 2 of those touchdowns were non-offensive, and I know some of Tennessee's touchdowns it scored in SEC play were non-offensive. But that's really disappointing because I think somebody said it. They went from 7th in points allowed just for the season to 92nd in the country in 1 year, which is it's a step back that you were not thinking was going to happen with this team defensively. And just it's not even just the fact that you had some guys injured. You're just botching basic fundamentals and you know, I don't know how much of it's scheming, but when you got guys playing 6-7 yards off the ball, you know, you're the 3rd and 8s and 9s, they're going to be giving up a little bit more easily. So I guess we have to address that elephant in the room. Do you expect any kind of changes on the defensive end, whether that be coaching, personnel out of the transfer portal, etc.?
I mean, personnel, without a doubt, they'll add guys, they'll lose guys. I'm not sure if they'll lose any names that kind of make your jaw drop, but they'll definitely add some guys, and you know they have a good defensive class coming in as well through recruiting. So there's going to be a bunch of new names back there, and I think that'll help fix it to a certain extent. Like this team would have been a lot different if you had either Jermod McCoy or Ricky Gipsy healthy. If you had Jacoby Thomas, who, if he doesn't transfer out in the spring, I think that would have went a really, really long way as well. Staff-wise, I mean, it's tough to say because Heupel's been so hesitant. Like, it's not like he's been firing assistant coaches when that position group's underperformed. He's had a very long leash with those guys, and he's built up a lot of trust with them. So I'm not going to sit here and say for sure either way. If I think, you know, the elephant in the room, Tim Banks, the defense coordinator, if he's going to be back next year, me personally, I think I could see the side of both sides of it. Like, I was a Tim Banks defender for a lot of the season, where I felt like he was getting a lot of hate that wasn't necessarily his fault. But at the same time, he did not call a lot of good games. He did not call a good game against Vanderbilt. There was multiple times this season where I don't want to say the loss fell squarely on his shoulders, and he's the 100% reason they lost that game, but he certainly didn't help them win that game. But I also think that you look at what they did in 2024, and he was he almost won the assistant coach or coordinator of the year trophy across college football. Like, there are the good and there is the bad. So if they do go ahead and fire him, I see why it was an unacceptable step in the wrong direction. At the end of the day, he is responsible for the personnel in that room, for the depth in that room, and for how that unit performs. But he's also proven that he can do it at a high level. And the steps that he took going into this year, from 21 to 22 to 23 to 24, the defense just continued to build upon itself. So I see both sides of it. If you want to fire him, you want to get a huge proven defensive coordinator, that's one of those hot names out there right now, sure, go ahead. If you want to keep him, fans are not going to be happy, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and I don't think it means the defense is going to be horrific next year. But if we're talking hot seats, that's the hottest seat in Knoxville right there if he does return.
Well, yeah, Ryan. So, what are your thoughts with Josh Heupel not firing some of these coaches? Because to my knowledge, I could be wrong. You guys could correct me, but I don't think he's fired a single coach on the staff in his 5 years being at Tennessee. Do you think that'll come back to bite him in the future?
I mean, it could, and it's a tough thing too. Where, like this Tim Banks situation, for example, you're going to get a lot of crap if you don't fire him, and Tim Banks and that unit don't have a good season next year. Then rightfully, I mean, you made the wrong decision and you're going to get a bunch of junk for it, and you probably deserve it. So it's such a fickle thing where, you know, it could very easily come back to bite them. But yeah, you're right. It's been, when they have had to replace guys, it's been a Mike Eckler leaving for Nebraska. It's been, other guys leaving for jobs in the NFL and things like that. It hasn't necessarily been a firing. I think that gets a little frustrating sometimes when you're sitting there and you're like, man, this unit is not performing well, but you're not making a change there necessarily. So I definitely see the frustration. I see the frustration around what Tim Banks and his defense did this year. But like I said, I'm just kind of, we'll see what they do at that defensive coordinator spot. It'll be interesting. It'll be, kind of magnified next season to see how that unit does.
Hey, there are a couple of good ones out there now with Justin Wilcox and Mark Stoops that are proven at other stops as defensive coordinators in the past. So if for some reason he goes or Josh Heupel decides to part ways, you could give one of those guys a call. But One other thing I do want to ask you about, Ryan, just as it relates to defensive coaching staff, because there is one particular SEC hire that I think could shape up the future for this Tennessee coaching staff on the defensive end. And then also there's some other stuff I've heard just in regard to like health of family members with Rodney Garner and potentially Coach Chop going down to Auburn to rejoin Alex Golesh. Do you think there is a lot of truth to that? Do you think that's a strong possibility?
More so on the Garner perspective, where he's, I mean, obviously he spent so much time over on the plains and had so much success there. I could see that one happen. I could see either happening, but definitely the Rodney Garner one makes a lot more sense to me. It feels like, maybe the ties are a little bit stronger there. I'm not saying it's for sure going to happen. But that to me feels like the one to look out for if there is going to be a staff change that's not a firing this year, because obviously Rodney Garner has done nothing to deserve to be fired or to be pushed out of town or anything like that. But if there is going to be a move that isn't a firing, it feels like that's probably the one that would happen, and it would make a lot of sense for him to follow Alex Golesh, who obviously he's familiar with from their 2 years together at Tennessee.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to follow up with that, if Garner were to leave, do you think it would be do you think Marion Hobby would instantly be a candidate for that job, knowing that they hired him this past offseason and the fact that he's an alum and has experience in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a few options that would be on staff right now. I think he would probably be the most sensible one, and he's a very experienced one as well. That feel like if they're, I don't think they do betting favorites for who the defensive line coach at a school is going to be like they do for head coaches. But if there was one that came out somewhere, I think that would probably be the favorite because it makes so much sense. And there is the connection to Tennessee. Now he's had a year on the staff. But you never know with Heupel too, where he obviously has not been afraid to go out. He's promoted on one hand. He's just promoted Evan Crabtree as special teams coordinator. On the other hand, he's gone out and he's gotten his own guy. He's gotten a Darrell Sims. He's gotten a William Minge, and he's used those connections across college football. So, not to just keep being non-committal. I think Hobby would make the most sense, but with Heupel, I wouldn't be surprised either if he went the other way and got his own guy.
Well, speaking of coaching moves, what are your thoughts about Josh Heupel potentially being linked to Penn State? Because I thought that was kind of questionable news going around.
Yeah, that was rumors start to spread and stuff happens and people pick up on it, and maybe there's a one camp that wants Heupel to leave so bad, so they kind of try to will it into reality, but it's just not. And that kind of got put to rest today, which was good to see Heupel just kind of come out and be like, I'm not a candidate for that job. Quit asking. The whole old Nick Saban, quit asking. So it seems like he'll definitely be at Tennessee next year, which should be a relief to Tennessee fans. Like, the job he's done at Tennessee has been remarkable. Are there plenty of flaws around Josh Heupel? Sure. But what he's done to rebuild Tennessee from a team that he took over that was 3-7 and just completely gutted. Now you're bringing in one of the better recruiting classes in the country this next cycle. I mean, it would be, I think, a little ridiculous for the small but vocal section of the Tennessee fan base that's trying to push him out and like, hey, yeah, go take that Penn State job. I think that's a little ridiculous, especially in this coaching cycle. I mean, everyone has a coaching opening right now.
I'm in agreement there. I think his comments today, I know some Tennessee fans were just like, oh, you said we're going to win big here and you just lost by 3 touchdowns to Vanderbilt. I think the team needs a little motivation, and I think that is something that I think is a well-timed comment. Speaking of motivation, Posty says strength and conditioning needs a hard look. I don't know the behind the scenes there with the strength and conditioning, but Ryan, do you feel like this team is, mentally tough enough to go against some of the very best in the SEC? Like, I feel like it lacks that mentality a little bit, and we've seen that with the Heupel teams where it's like they're just trying to outscore people at times. You're not seeing hard-nosed defenses necessarily. Like, you look back on the one really good defensive season they had in 2024, they largely had the gift of playing not spectacular offenses for a lot of that season. Teams like Oklahoma and Kentucky, Mississippi State was not great once Blake Shapen went down for the year. Florida was playing 2 quarterbacks at the time. Do you think because obviously we will see what happens with the staff if they decide to make changes, but if they do make changes, do you think Josh Heupel needs to go out and grab him some disciplinarian coaches?
I mean, yeah, that's what Rodney Garner is, though. But that also makes sense that that's been one of their better position groups, I guess. On the same hand, is like he will get after them. Coach Chop will get after them. And what's been continuously so great about Tennessee's defense is they've gone after the quarterback, and they've done a good job with those defensive linemen. So yeah, I can see that. 24 felt like they had that. And I get what you're saying too, where it's not like they were playing the best offense in the world every single week. The schedule the last 2 seasons worked out very favorably for Tennessee. I think they had in 24. I think they showed it at times in 25. Not that Florida was a good team by any means, but you saw what they did against Florida State last weekend, where it's like that was a team that still had the talent to go out and beat some teams. They beat Texas and all that type of stuff. And Tennessee just laid it on them, and they had no chance in the game. So there was weeks where it was like, yeah, there it is. That looks good. Kentucky's same way. Not that Kentucky's good. Once again, they lost to all the good teams they played, beat all the bad teams they played. But there were times where they looked mentally tough, and they could do that. Even Mississippi State, you're on the road. It's a loud, tough environment. They're ringing the cowbells irresponsibly, and you're over the ball and you're trying to get a playoff, and it's tough in that environment. And I felt like they were gut checked a little bit and passed the gut check. Then you look at Alabama, and they fold in the second half. Then you look at Oklahoma and its self-inflicted mistakes that cost them. And then especially that Vanderbilt game where kind of felt like when they went down 14 points there in the second half, it was like, man, this one's over. Tennessee doesn't look like a team right now on either side of the ball that's going to have the response for this. So it's a year-to-year thing. I think that is something that they're going to have to address this year is like you do need to find a group that's going to stick together for all 12 games, for all 4 quarters of all 12 games, because if you don't, with how thin the margins are, you go from a tie at 21 at halftime against Vanderbilt to losing a game by 21 points, and it happens in the snap of a finger. So I think there is some validity to that.
I want to talk about the Neyland effect for a second, because that's something that this program has pumped up for a while. It was around even when Butch was having some of his better years at Tennessee. And then you look at this season and really this era of Tennessee football, Josh Heupel has brought that term back. And again, some of this is to blame, I think, on ticket prices and whatnot. How much of an effect do you think the home field advantage still is for this program? Because you go 1-3 at home, and you lose a couple games where you just didn't feel like you had a shot in the second half, and Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Like, honestly, I know they were down 1 touchdown at points in that second half against Oklahoma, but the way Oklahoma was playing that game, it just did not feel like they were going to be able to get into it. Are we starting to see negative effects to the Neyland effect just because of some of these changes that have happened from around the athletic department?
I mean, yeah, you're going to get the screenshots of that section down the lower area where the seats are empty. I know a lot of the people are just kind of underneath, but that, then you're not really into the game. It's just visually a bad look. And you lost some of the seatage for the extra Jumbotron party deck, which the Jumbotron was kind of needed, but maybe the party deck takes away a little bit of the atmosphere, if you want to say that, just because you're losing some seats. You're still one of the best, if not the best, in college football, in my opinion, though. You look at 2024, I think 2024 Alabama, kind of towards the end of that game, was the loudest stadium I've ever been in. Maybe not the loudest peak, but the loudest sustained noise. And part of that, too, though, is it's really tough for fans to get into a game if the defense can't get off the field on third down like they could on Saturday. It's really tough when every time the defense has the ball or the defense is on the field and the offense for the opponent has the ball, they're getting scored on. It's tough to stay locked in. When you have a team like you did in 2024 and the defense was firing on all cylinders and they're shutting people out and it was such a great time on the defensive side, that's when the crowd really kind of feels like they have that impact and they get into it. And then you get that kind of curtain of noise that's impossible to recover from. So I think part of it might be renovations, that maybe it's not as good as it was this year. Part of it, too, though, is just the defense took such a big step back that it's like, man, this is the 5th third down of this drive, and they haven't even gotten close to getting off the field on any of them. Like, I don't know how much longer you can do this until they just finally punch it in. And then when it starts to snowball, too, it's like, I know Vanderbilt on Twitter is trying to make fun of, the Neyland effect that they call it and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, yeah, I don't really expect fans to stay when they're down 21 points in the fourth quarter. I don't think that's the Neyland effect thing. At the end of the day, it's how good are the two teams? You have that 3-point swing or whatever you want to call it from Vegas for who's playing at home. Whoever the better team's the better team. If it was a stadium contest, Tennessee would be in the playoffs every year and competing for national championships. But it's not a stadium contest; it's a football game. So at the end of the day, it comes down to the guys on the field.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the defense there, because that has been a point of concern with the environment too, on the social media. Is like this weekend in particular, and you knew the dam was going to burst against Oklahoma if the offense wasn't going to be able to score. The Georgia game was the only one where I really felt like it was just there constantly. Like
Sure.
even Arkansas, I don't feel like it was super loud all the time. Um, I felt like in the 2-minute drill, like there was a little bit of complacency there in the end, just because they're up 17, and Arkansas, as we saw, scored. They had to take some time off the clock in order to get all the way down the field, but they were able to score on both of those possessions to cut the deficit to 3.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Georgia game, and I think not that the defense played very well in that game. Like they gave up, what was it, 45 points or whatever it ended up being after overtime. But that is kind of the push too, where it's like tennis. That was the perfect storm too. It's a Checker Neyland, game days on campus. So it's already a big time atmosphere. Tennessee's still undefeated at that point. Your entire season's in front of you. You're trying to beat Georgia, a rival, for the first time in forever, and you get off to that fast start and you take that big lead, and then that just kind of ramped everything up from there. And so yeah, I think that one's the one that'll stand out from this year. Is like, you have to pick an atmosphere, it's going to be that one. It's usually, I guess, either the Alabama or Checker Neyland game, or usually that's just the Florida game. When you do the Checker Neyland, they're both usually incredible atmospheres. Then in those odd numbered years, it's oftentimes maybe the start of the Georgia game. Like if you think to 23 and the Jalen Wright touchdown, it's like, it's a lot of fun until the scoreboard starts to flash up. So it's either the Georgia game or whatever game they're checkering Neyland for. And those kind of, gimmicks, if you want to call it that, or whatever you want to call it, they work, and it looks really cool and fans get into it. So I don't have any problem with it. But I would say the Georgia game, if you had to pick one from this year, that was probably the best environment.
Yeah, I was at the game in 2023 against Georgia, and I was there when Tennessee broke the decibel record and everything. But honestly, man, like the loudest game I think that I ever went to at Tennessee was 2010 Florida. Like I know it didn't go well for Tennessee, but for something about that game was just outrageously loud.
Yeah, I mean the game on my bucket list, like if I had a time machine and I could go on a bucket list of, college sports or any sporting event that I wasn't able to go to in person, 1998 Florida looked unbelievable. Storming the field afterwards, obviously en route to national championship. That's the game to me. I know it's I can't think of the year, but was it 04, 06 Florida that everyone says is the loudest, or 08. The 1998 one to me looks like it was the most fun atmosphere Tennessee's ever had. That looked incredible. And 22 Alabama was obviously a good one too, but I was there in person, so I don't have to use the time machine for that one.
Yeah, the 98 Florida game would have been really fun to go to, because that was a streak breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned it was the 04 one, because it was after that where the drought began.
Yes, yeah.
That was not broken again until Butch Jones got there with the Smoky Grays going against the all-white jerseys from Florida. There have been some really funky uniform matchups like that in the past, like LSU down there in 22. Another very odd one, non-traditional looks. So not always a fan of those, which is why part of the reason why I'm glad Tennessee beat Alabama that year, playing in its traditional look, because we don't want to just see gimmicks for victories with this Tennessee team over its SEC opponents, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it. I'm just done with the Smoky Grays right now. Like I'm okay if Adidas doesn't renew them and they don't want to do that style of jersey. I like the dark mode. I like one dark mode game a year, and I like the orange and white, obviously. And then on the road too, I just don't even love the look of the orange pants on the road. I love the all white stormtrooper type of look on the road too. So if I could pick uniforms every game, give me one blackout. Give me all white every time you're on the road, and then at home maybe mix in orange pants 1 or 2 times a year and just go with the white pants besides that. I like the traditional look.
Man, I feel like I'm in the minority, because I've always said like my favorite uniform combination for Tennessee is the white on orange. I think about watching the old Decade of Dominance VHS thing that they had, and watching Jeremy Lincoln block that field goal against Notre Dame. I always like that color combination, and I hope if Tennessee goes back to Adidas, maybe we can see that orange outline return on the jerseys.
That would be nice. I like the black outline too. I think all the numbers also look good. I'm curious what it would look like now in kind of the modern era of jerseys, when it's not, looking kind of like they were back in the 90s. It might look a little funkier, but I think it could look pretty good still. So I agree.
Just a couple more things here, Ryan, then we'll let you run. Number one, you got signing day coming up. on Wednesday. A pretty big day. Not as big as it used to be, honestly. It used to be more of a holiday than this. Now everything's just everything's spoiled, I guess, several months in advance. Although that may not be the case this year with some people. Is there any chance that you see a flip happening with Tennessee, landing a flip or losing flips?
Yeah, I mean, I think Amari Latimer from Wisconsin's still a guy that you have to keep tabs on. They don't have a running back in the class, and I'm sure they would love to sign one. And they put all their chips in the Savion Hyder department, and that didn't work out. And he goes to Michigan. Oh well, I don't hate that move because you are deep at running back. Like you would expect Deshaun Bishop to come back. You would expect Peyton Lewis to come back, and it seems they really like what DeJuan Morris gives them as well. So it's not like you were desperate for a running back, and you can always – I feel like it's kind of like the NFL. I don't want to undervalue the running back here, but it feels like it's probably the easiest one to grab out of the portal and get production from too. So sure, go all in for Savion Hyder and see what happens. You don't land him, he goes to Michigan, sure. Still like to have a freshman running back in the room. So I think it makes sense if they do try to pull off a flip of someone like Amari Latimer. We'll see if he stays true to Wisconsin or not. But Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago got a second running back commit in that class. So that kind of, I think, perks your ears up a little bit on maybe what that decision could look like. So that's what I'm keeping tabs on. But then going out too, I mean, you got to protect your class. You got to make sure guys are still in the boat. And I think the number one guy to keep tabs on right now would be Salisi Moa, athlete from Utah, potential guy that could play both ways, on an official visit at Michigan from when they hosted Ohio State this last Saturday. So doesn't necessarily mean he's going to flip, but it does necessarily mean that there is some interest there. So we'll have to see exactly what that visit played out like and what his ultimate decision is. But the early sign day too, it's like that. I mean, there's usually one, if even. I think last year there was 0 guys that held out to the actual signing day. So you get a really good picture at the class coming up on Wednesday as far as who's actually going to be there and who's not. It's not like you have to wait for half the class for the actual signing day. It's just, let's rip the Band-Aid off now and see where everyone's going.
Did you mention Jordan Carter by any chance, or do you think Georgia Tech is starting to win that one?
Yeah, I mean, he's one too. I think that's worth keeping tabs on. I know Georgia Tech too just today, as far as Tennessee-wise, finished the recruitment for Braylon Outlaw. Now, he was a long-time Tennessee commit and then backed off, I think, about a month or two ago now. So that just rings a bell when you say that. But yeah, feels like Georgia Tech kind of has all the buzz in that one, but it's still a guy that I think is worth noting and worth following what he does on signing day. And then even this isn't even Tennessee related necessarily, but I think everyone's very curious about what Curtis does as far as, is he going to stick with Georgia? Is he going to go to Vanderbilt? Because if he goes to Vanderbilt, that's probably QB1 over there in Nashville next year. And that'll be interesting to see what the drop-off or non-drop-off looks like for Clark Lee and them if they can pull off that flip.
Yeah.
What about Tristan Keys? Do you think there's any chance that he flips now that Lane Kiffin's at LSU?
I haven't heard anything to make me think that he's someone that would flip. I know a lot of outside people have always tried to kind of push him and Faison Brandon into a bucket. Like, oh, you never know until they're signed and things like that. But those two guys, to me, at least right now, a few days before signing day, I haven't heard anything that makes me think either of those guys are going anywhere. You never know. We'll see how things play out. But I feel, as confident as you can be, I guess, that those 5 stars will still be in the boat on signing day.
Well, I had another question. Let me pull it up real quick. Oh, yeah. We still got one more game to see this team play. Yeah. We will know the answer to that question, where that team or where Tennessee will play. I guess that's 6 days from now. What is the best possible bowl destination realistically for this team? Because Tennessee is one of 4 teams that is not a 10-win team and not a team with a losing record. It's just a team that has single-digit wins and is going to a bowl game.
I mean, I think the best case scenario for everyone involved is just the Music City Bowl. Get it over with. Just head on over there. You'll sell at the stadium. Everyone in Nashville that can't make their way to Knoxville, they're all Tennessee.
Will they go?
Yeah, I think they will, because I think there's a good amount of people that love Tennessee football, but they don't live in Knoxville, and they don't want to drive 4 hours to go over to Knoxville. Maybe they live a little towards the west of Nashville. Not going to the most expensive ticket on the road, bring the kids out there. I think there would be a pretty good turnout for the Music City Bowl, even if Tennessee went there 0-12. I think a good amount of Tennessee fans, it's rain or shine for this group. So I think the turnout would be fine there. And I think, too, like, you just look at the schedule. I'll tell you what Tennessee doesn't want to be in: the Liberty Bowl. They don't want to be in the Mayo Bowl. those are games on January 2nd, the day the transfer portal opens. You don't want to be playing in a game the day the transfer. That's a nightmare situation. Nobody wants to play in that game. So if you're a Tennessee fan, Liberty Bowl, Duke's Mayo Bowl, you do not want to play in those. You're fine with the ones before that. You just don't want to play in those games. I don't think Citrus Bowl is on the table again. Maybe it is, depending on what the playoff picture looks like. But ReliaQuest Bowl, sure, December 31st. It's before that. Music City Bowl, sure, it's December 30th. It's before that. Gator Bowl, Texas Bowl, if that ends up being the choice or something like that, that's all fine. That's on December 27th. You just want to get that all done with. You want to be able to close the book on the season and fully go full steam into the transfer portal by the time that opens. You don't have to be worried about a bowl game. That's just another example of how stupid the schedule is right now in college football.
Yeah, and I think you look at the fact, too, that there is that group of 6 teams in the SEC that missed all those bowl games. It's like maybe some of these teams that would normally get put in those bowl games are going to dodge them because, with the college football playoff and with this, 4 or 5 team group that is expected to get into the college football playoff from the SEC, maybe you're looking at a scenario where you can dodge some of those less desirable ones, like maybe the Gator Bowl and ReliaQuest Bowl are a little bit more desirable. Because I agree with you on the Liberty Bowl and the way the Texas Bowl goes, like they usually decide to pick teams from the western part of the conference to go out there.
It's usually Missouri and all those guys.
Yeah, Arkansas, A&M's been out there a few times. Ole Miss.
It makes sense. You don't want to pick Florida and then it's a horrible trip for them. You don't get as much of a turnout and all that type of stuff. So it makes sense.
Is the Vegas Bowl in play, by the way?
The Vegas Bowl? I don't think so. I can check really fast
because it's been SEC before.
It has. It looks like they switch on and off. I know it's here. It says conference tie-in SEC 22-24. So yeah, 25's Pac-12 and then Big Ten. So God knows what they're going to do.
Washington State and
somebody
for old time's sake in the Pac-12, I guess, is what you want to do there.
Yes, I'm not sure how that'll work out because I guess they just got screwed into a Pac-12 contract or something. So,
yeah,
A&M was there last year, so they have had SEC teams before. But I think a quick look, it looks like it's probably in every other year they do the SEC. I know there's a couple bowl games like that kind of switch year in and year out.
Yeah, I don't mind not seeing this team in Vegas. I'm sure you guys who who made the trek out to Vegas for the Players Era Festival wouldn't really want to go back to Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like I said, just stick them in the Music City Bowl. Let's get this thing over with. Stick them with Minnesota or something. They'll probably beat them bad with George McIntyre quarterback if that's the route they want to go. It doesn't matter. It's just a scrimmage. Get over with. Get some fans from West and Mid Tennessee out there and call it a day. Let's close the book on the season.
Any updates on Smokey 12, his progress?
That's the real coaching search. That's I told Shumpert and Rick when that happened, I said, I'll get the announcement. If one of you guys could throw together a hot board, that'd be great. If you could get the next Smokey 12 sources working on that. We'll see. I mean, right decision though. It was tough to watch that dog struggle in Neyland. So I'm happy that let him retire, let him be in peace with his dad, Smokey X, over with the Hudson family, and let's get a dog that's a lot more comfortable doing this.
Hey, just remember, Smokey is as much Josh Heupel's dog as Juice is Lane Kiffin's dog.
Yeah. Well, he had the chance to get on the plane. He didn't get on the plane.
No, he didn't get on the plane.
If you're on the plane, you're going with you. He didn't get on the plane. What do you want?
Nope. No, he couldn't get on the plane. Could not make the trip to Baton Rouge and start a new life.
He's bought in for Goldie and what they're doing over there now.
Yeah. He's posting the shark emojis on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's getting everybody out of the portal. It's not Lane doing that work.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you look at Lane's Twitter bio still, I think he's still the Ole Miss coach. So who knows?
Yeah. I watched that press conference today. It was fascinating.
I didn't catch it, and I don't think I'll go back and watch either. I'm just Lane Kiffin, man. He's one of a kind.
we're probably going to go on a little tangent on that to end the show, Jordan, because he's a chapter in Tennessee football history.
Big one. Big chapter in a short amount of time.
Yes, that indeed he is. Listen, Ryan, it was awesome to have you on the show this week, making your debut here on Tennessee Volunteers Live. Tell us what you guys got going on at Rocky Top Insider now that football season is beginning to wind down slowly.
Yeah, we'll have you covered for, we've kind of been keeping tabs, first of all, on the SEC coaching news and things like that, because that does play an implication for Tennessee. They're playing so many of these new coaches next year. So what are those teams going to look like? But then from the Tennessee perspective, offseason wise, transfer portal's going. You got Jamal Wallace and Kellen Lindstrom in the portal, two guys that didn't play much, kind of deep rotation guys in the defensive line. But, the expectation is obviously a lot more will enter as we kind of near that official point of the transfer portal opening. Signing days coming up. We'll keep bowl watch, kind of keep tying the bow on this season, then basketball coverage as well. We'll have you covered on the men's and women's side. So everything you need Tennessee athletics, we got you at Rocky Top Insider.
All right. Appreciate it, Ryan. Happy to have you on the show. We will do it again soon, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on. It was good talking, and I can't wait to hop on again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. See you guys.
See you, Ryan.
See ya.
One more time, Ryan Sylvia of Rocky Top Insider with us tonight. Always appreciate his insight, and everybody over there at Rocky Top Insider. You can check out what they're doing at RockyTopInsider.com. So we talked to Ryan about everything that happened over the course of the season, what Tennessee needs to do here in the offseason. Y'all can go check that out once we are done here. But I do want to take a look at what happened on Tennessee's football schedule this week. That is to the opponents on Tennessee's football schedule one last time in 2025. You had everybody except ETSU play this weekend on the schedule. And there are some results here that I think are pretty important. One that we're going to spend a little bit more time on than usual because it involves opponents on Tennessee's 2026 schedule, one in particular. But let's take a look at it now. Scrolling through here, you've got UAB taking down Tulsa. Shout out UAB, 31-24 winner over the Golden Hurricane. Shout out Jordan's MTSU Blue Raiders for getting it done 31-24 against New Mexico State, improving to 2-10 on the season. Very nice. Very, very nice.
On the come up.
Yeah, absolutely. They're getting better. They're getting better. Only team out of conference that Tennessee played this year that lost was Syracuse. They lose 34-12 to what was previously a 1-10 Boston College team. Fran Brown making a lot of decisions today in regard to his staff. I wonder if Josh Heupel will follow in that direction. We will see in the coming weeks. But man, I think Syracuse is a team that, despite the fact that they have a good coach, their season just went out the window with the Steve Angeli injury, man.
Man, I've felt so bad for Syracuse this entire season. Like, I was talking to my coworker, I guess it was like a week or two ago or whatever. She's a Notre Dame fan. And I was like, hey, who's Notre Dame playing this week? And she told me Syracuse. And I was like, yeah, you guys are going to have fun with that game. And then I checked the score. Notre Dame like put up like 70 points on them or something like that. I don't remember what the final score was. But man, I mean, Fran Brown, I like you said, I mean, I think he's an excellent coach. It's just so unfortunate, all the circumstances that face him this year, because I think Angeli had potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football this year, and he was leading the nation for a bit, but man, I mean, you could see how important he was to his team when he went down. I mean, because it just rough. Like, they didn't win any like games. Like, how many wins did they have this season? Like 3?
3-9 is what they finished. I think they were I think that was the actual toilet bowl of the ACC this year. Well, Virginia Tech might have also gone 3-9. I forget already, but I think those were the only 2 of 3 teams that had 3 or less wins this season, because I know North Carolina at least got to 4 despite all the shenanigans with Chapel Bill.
Yeah, that was a crazy mess too. And I haven't looked into it, but I saw a graphic online saying that the ACC could potentially miss a chance at the playoffs this year, because apparently like Duke's in there and they're like 7-5. Yes. And then I can't remember what the other team is in there, but that would be crazy if an ACC team didn't make it.
So basically Virginia has to win in order for them to get a chance to get in. Maybe Duke just makes it silly. That whole thing's a mess, man. I know, because Josh Pate does his show every week. He does the Sarah McLachlan special. He didn't even do a matchup this week or a team. He just did an entire conference, and it was the ACC. that poor conference is just so bad now. They have not adapted to conference expansion well. So moving on to these SEC games, which oddly enough, some of them do include ACC teams that we saw over the weekend. Georgia getting it done 16-9 against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech finishes the regular season with 9 wins. I guess that is a team to keep an eye on in the offseason, as that is Tennessee's first big opponent in 2026. Georgia, though, finishes the season with the best overall record in the SEC. They make it into the SEC championship against Alabama for the however many time in the last 15 years. I've lost count at this point how many times those two have played in the SEC championship, even though they have played every now and again in the regular season.
Yeah, it's weird how they've matched up so much. I mean, because you had the East and West back in the day, yet Georgia and Alabama are routinely meeting each other every time, whether or not it was like in the SEC championship or in the playoffs. And it's somewhat became a rivalry as of late, which is kind of weird. I feel like it's kind of akin to Tennessee and Georgia's rivalry, where, I mean, maybe on paper, based on their like most recent results, you could maybe say it's a rivalry, but I don't think either. Well, maybe Georgia fans think it's a rivalry, but I don't think Alabama fans do.
No, definitely not. I'm not going to try and count it up off the top of my head, but
it's got to be rough.
No, Georgia. Yeah, it's a lot now, and Georgia has just been escaping all season against everyone that isn't Alabama, which is so odd because that was a home game. I don't think Georgia trailed after the second quarter in this game, which is kind of wild because considering it was 16-9. I want to say Gunnar Stockton only had like 90 or 70 pass yards. Gonna check my notes here. 70 yards. So not even. That's kind of crazy. Georgia Tech is a tough football team, and they've given Georgia trouble the past couple seasons, just trying to get wins in clean old-fashioned hate, or as they're now referring to it as the Invesco QQQ Atlanta Gridiron Football Classic. I don't know. It's just silly. Too many words in whatever that title is I just said that I don't even want to remember exists.
And that's like a legitimate thing that people are trying to throw around?
Well, that's at least the sponsorship. So their current AD, who was actually a part of Danny White's staff at UT, he has started to push back on the contracts to play all the home games in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Like they're like. One of his big deals is to stop playing games in there and keep them at Georgia Tech as opposed to going in there. And that's a big reason why Tennessee's playing there next year as opposed to the Mercedes-Benz Dome, which I'm a huge proponent of doing that, going to a home environment. I know Georgia Tech is not a phenomenal home environment, but I'd much rather play the game there than in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Plus, I mean, it's the Bobby Dog Classic. I mean, how can you say no to that? So, but yeah, that's Tennessee's first big opponent next season that Georgia beat. Moving on down here, Ole Miss getting it done 38-19 against Mississippi State. Mississippi State misses out on bowl eligibility, as we discussed, but put a star next to that because we're going to come back to this game in a second because we have some things to discuss about the future of one of those two teams. Moving on down, Mizzou taking out Arkansas 31-17. This is one of the funniest looking stat lines you'll ever see. Pope Rebuel 4 of 7 for 25 passing yards, and Mizzou scored 31 points in this game because they ran for over 300 yards on the ground. Also had a nice punt return touchdown mixed in there. So Eli Drinkwitz finishes the year 8-4 in what was kind of a rebuilding year up there. And Arkansas has made its move. They got Ryan Silverfield, which at the moment kind of feels like the most uninspiring hire. I know everybody else has made moves at this point. Now that they've all happened, I feel like that is probably the most uninspiring hire of all the SEC teams, which I hate it because Arkansas used to be at least a somebody in the SEC football landscape. But like since conference expansion has hurt, I don't think it gets talked about enough how much their recruiting base and where those funds are allocated within the university, how much those have been hurt just here in recent years, and just what appears to be incompetence from the athletics director.
Yeah, and he shoot, Silverfield, he's the coach for Memphis, ain't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know what to think about that hire, to be honest, but I just don't really expect like too many coaches to be going to Arkansas. And I know I brought this up to you the other day, that weird situation going on where Alex Golesh was initially hired as Arkansas's head coach and then ended up going to Auburn. Like that was a little confusing situation there. That would have been a big time hire for Arkansas if they could have got him. But I mean, I feel like Arkansas has kind of been like one of the more like forgotten teams in the SEC, even though they've been in the SEC for a while. I mean, I don't know. It's just weird with those West teams, man. Like Arkansas, especially Missouri's got to be the weirdest bunch in the SEC in terms of it just looks weird. And then like Texas and Oklahoma now. It's just interesting to see how much things have changed. But yeah, good luck with Arkansas with their new head coach. I don't really know much about him, but hopefully he ends up doing something for him, because it'd be nice to see Arkansas be competitive, have another good team in the SEC.
Yeah, the overall record against winning teams is not great for Ryan Silverfield, so I don't think Arkansas fans are ecstatic about that. They also said something, or well, they didn't say something. They tried to stage a Shiano Sunday, or I guess a Silverfield Sunday in their eyes, but failed at doing so. But he has managed to land some recruits within the first 24 hours. I want to say there was like 4 or 5 guys that committed there today. So good for him, I guess. So we'll see what happens to them as his time begins there. Moving on here, the Iron Bowl, Alabama getting it done 27-20 at Auburn. Ty Simpson throws a touchdown pass to Isaiah Horton with 3:50 to go in the game. Auburn's driving with a chance to tie the game late, and they fumbled it away there in the final few minutes to Alabama. And Alabama is the regular season champ of the SEC if you're going off of head-to-heads and tiebreakers and all that fun stuff. They will have to play Georgia in the SEC championship. I am curious to see how the committee treats that game, especially if Alabama loses that game. Like, will they get shuffled out of the playoff race? Are they going to get let in and not get a home spot? I don't think they're going to get a home game anyway, just with the way the college football playoff is shaped out and the fact that they have 2 losses, one of which is a terrible loss at Florida State, which just it looks weirder and weirder by the week, to be honest. But the bigger story from this game is Auburn hiring Alex Golesh just a few hours later on Sunday morning. And this is a guy that will be coaching Auburn in Neyland Stadium next season. And as we discussed before, we know for a fact he will be bringing some former Tennessee assistants with him. Wide receivers coach Cody Burns, who was the first coach before Kelsey Pope was brought in to do the same job. There's at least a couple more. Parker Ball, the former player at Tennessee, he's coming on staff to join. He was at USF with Golesh, but he's joining as well. And then we discussed the possibility of Rodney Garner potentially going back to his alma mater as well. So good hire for Auburn, I guess. I mean, I would say they will probably be akin to Tennessee in that like 8 to 10 win range. I don't know if they'll be competing for national championships. A lot of the same concerns with Golesh at this point are the ones that you had with Heupel going in. But yeah, overall, I think it's a solid hire.
Yeah, it'll definitely make for an interesting matchup. I mean, when Tennessee has to go play against Auburn, especially knowing that he's going to know all of Josh Heupel's tricks being on the staff and everything. But I mean, I think it's a great hire for Auburn, to be honest. And I guess we'll get to see what Alex Golesh is really made of. I mean, because you can catch people slipping when you're at a smaller school like South Florida until you start winning a lot of games. Then teams start to respect you more, start to prep more. But it's going to be a real test for him to see what he does as an SEC head coach. And I hope the best for him, because, I mean, he broke. I mean, Tennessee's offense under Golesh was just phenomenal. I mean, statistically the best in 2022, the best offense we ever seen at Tennessee. So congratulations to him for getting a job, because I think it's well deserved. And it'll be interesting to see how it pans out with him in Auburn, because if he ends up doing big things there and starts bringing them to the playoffs, I think there's going to be some questioning around Tennessee's fan base, wondering whether or not Alex Golish was the reason for Tennessee's success during those years. I don't necessarily buy into that, but I mean, that question probably will be opened up if he starts finding some success.
Louisville shutting out Kentucky this week 41-0. That was, at least in the eyes of the administration, the thing that appeared to be the straw that broke the camel's back for Kentucky. Mark Stoops is out of there. And they moved quickly with this hire for an athletics department that does not move very quickly with Mitch Barnhart as the AD. They hired Will Stein, who is the offensive coordinator at Oregon, is a former Louisville quarterback, which is kind of interesting given the fact that he will now be coaching for his rival. We have seen the Oregon offensive coordinator path produce in the past with Kenny Dillingham. So we will see what happens with Will Stein. Maybe it's an underrated hire.
Maybe so. I mean, I don't know much about him, but I thought it was interesting because wasn't it like the day before the game that Mark Stoops was asked about like his future at Kentucky, and he said that he had like no plans on retirement and stuff like that, and then like a day or two later he ended up getting fired from the school. It was just interesting, like seeing the optics with all of that, because it seemed like he was happy being with Kentucky and everything. And I guess you would be if you're a head coach of the SEC team. But it's just interesting to see everything that transpired after the fact. I mean, 41-0 to a rival school. That's pretty bad look, especially considering that when's the last time that he's had a pretty successful team with Kentucky? Like maybe around like 2020 or 2019.
21 was the year they won 10 for the second time under him. They had a couple 7-win seasons after that, and they've not made a bowl each of the last two. Again, Kentucky not going to move quickly on coaches. I am a little surprised just given the fact they won games against Auburn and Florida down the stretch, because Auburn and Florida, despite not being good, that's who Mark Stoops generally wins against. But overall, I don't think either party is necessarily upset by the decision. I think Mark Stoops is grateful for his time at Kentucky. I think the Kentucky fans are grateful for him winning 7 to 10 games a year at various points in his career, and they're happy with that. That's fine. But just because that's how that program works. But when a guy's been there for 13 years, it's going to get old after a while. So don't necessarily fault them for doing that. Just a couple more here. Oklahoma going to get done 17-13 against LSU. Isaiah Centania scores from 58 yards out with 4:15 to go in the game, and the Sooners get a stop with the turnover on downs. They're going to the college football playoff. Oklahoma is essentially just a better version of the team that we saw them field a season ago. John Mateer is a more competent quarterback than Jackson Arnold, and that he doesn't turn the ball over nearly as much. But you look at what he did this year. He wasn't always the most productive quarterback. It didn't feel like, but that defense has just been able to be a matchup nightmare. I think that's the kind of team that you see in like basketball tournaments. Tennessee is a great example of this under Rick Barnes, actually, where nobody really wants to play them. But eventually, when you're just thriving off of being a tricky matchup, your luck is going to run out eventually. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with Oklahoma once it reaches the CFP.
Yeah, I mean, their defense has been helping them out significantly throughout the season. I mean, we're talking about one of the best defenses in all of college football in terms of their pass rush and everything like that. It's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing in the playoffs. I mean, considering, if they end up going far, maybe the old analogy will stay true that defense can win championships. I don't think Oklahoma goes to the national championship, but if they do, it could be a proving point in college football that maybe teams should be putting less focus on having a dynamic offense and more of having a hard-nosed defense, which I think defenses became underrated in like the past decade or so as more teams in the college and the NFL have moved towards passing spread offenses and everything like that. I mean, Tennessee's MO has always been like, we're going to outscore you. But I don't know if that always wins games. I mean, it's nice to have a good defense out there. I mean, you look at what Nick Saban did back in the days, like around like 2010, 2011 times. I mean, you couldn't do anything on those defenses. And if you got a defense that can be that good, then you're going to have a hard time losing some football games.
Yeah. Last one on the schedule, and we alluded to this a little bit earlier. Florida getting it done 40-21 against Florida State, preventing Florida State from going to a bowl game, which is pretty funny because a week earlier they said they were going to keep Mike Norvell around, and they're going to now, but he is going to be on maybe the hottest seat in college football. He worked his way off the hot seat, and it just got even hotter because once that brain trust of Jordan Travis and all those guys left, he was just toast down there in Tallahassee. But I think Jaden Baugh went for 266 rush yards in this game for Florida, which is pretty impressive. He's been one of their more redeeming qualities this year offensively, but obviously that's a phenomenal performance individually. They go out and hire John Summerall to be their next head coach. And this is the guy that a year or two ago Kentucky was looking for once they felt like Mark Stoops was going to not work out for much longer. But they moved a little too slow to try and get him, and Florida got him instead. Just seeing everything that was going on with the LSU Ole Miss situation further west. But overall, I think it's a good hire for Florida, even though they did just go to the G5 school from Louisiana before.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that Florida got to play spoiler in the game. I mean, that's what Tennessee fans were hoping for in the Vanderbilt game. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. But I mean, hey, I don't typically cheer for Florida. Most of the times, I'm just hoping that they're gonna get blown out. But honestly, I was kind of hoping they'd pull up the upset against Florida State this week, just because I like seeing some parity in college football here. But yeah, Summerall, I'm intrigued to see how that ends up going for Florida. I mean, I'm looking at here right now. I mean, he has a pretty impressive record of 42-11, 4 years as a head coach. And has he only been Tulane's head coach this season, or was he there when Brazel was there?
This is year 2. I'm not sure he recruited Brazel. That may have been a Willie Fritz thing, but he took over after being at Troy for a couple seasons where he had done really well. So he had been in the mix at Auburn, and then I think Florida moved on him. And then Auburn ended up getting Golish instead, which could be a more fun thing just because he's not a defensive mind, and they need fun offenses now at Auburn, it feels like.
Yeah, they need something to get that fan base going because it's kind of sad seeing what Auburn's been like these past couple of seasons. I'm waiting for them to become a powerhouse again in the SEC so we can bring some things back to normal.
Yeah. I guess bonus round here real quick. USC getting it done 29-10 against UCLA. That was pretty funny because now Nico is sitting at 3-9 to end the season. We'll see if he sticks around for Bob Chesney. That is their new coach at UCLA. I think the only team that has not hired somebody right now is Penn State, because Michigan State more or less hired Pat Fitzgerald. There was signs that they were going to hire him yesterday, but it appears they have made that move now. And, of course, UCLA has made its move, and Kentucky made its move earlier this afternoon. So I don't think anybody else is looking for a coach at the moment. Butch Jones, unfortunately, won, so you'll get to see him in a bowl game. You can hate watch him here in a couple weeks in the Camellia Bowl or whatever Mobile Bowl that he's playing in here in a few weeks with the mighty Arkansas State Red Wolves. But one more thing that I did want to mention to end this show. We have to talk about it because even though it was a small chapter in his life, it is a chapter nonetheless, because Tennessee does have ties to Lane Kiffin. And after 16 years and what appeared to be some image rehab, it appears that Lane Kiffin is still very much Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, which is honestly very reassuring to me because I started feeling like I got Stockholm syndrome with Lane Kiffin a little bit because he'd give Tennessee his credit from time to time, even though he left after a season. And I would see some clips from him. I started to like him some more, and I didn't like that because he was the coach that broke my heart my first year watching Tennessee play football, and I instantly, of course, being like a little 10-year-old kid, had a lot of hatred towards Lane Kiffin during that time. Kind of simmered down a little bit, but it's kind of relieving at the same time to realize that he's still the same guy at the end of the day. So Tennessee fans and Ole Miss fans can collectively get together and share their hatred for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, we discussed with our buddy Josh Mahler, who is the host of Oklahoma Sooners Live here on the Voice of College Football Network, the Oklahoma channel, of course. You can check him out there. But we discussed how Tennessee fans have this weird relationship with them, like good relationship. Tennessee fans aren't really friends with many people in this conference. I think we're about to extend that handshake to Ole Miss because Ole Miss fans are feeling everything that Tennessee fans felt back then. I mean, we could sell the naming rights to this agreement and call it the French's mustard bottle treaty. Because, and here's what's crazy, Jordan. You know where LSU has to play next season?
Where?
Ole Miss and Tennessee. That's double mustard bottle trouble right there for Lane Kiffin. That's going to be a scary experience for him once again. I don't know how he will be remembered fondly anywhere that he's been, because unless he just goes out and wins a few national championships at LSU, he's being looked at right now as a guy that was fired in one case by USC, and everywhere else he ran off when things were at their best, or in the case of Tennessee, not going or hadn't really developed yet at Tennessee. But looking at what happened with Ole Miss, you could argue it's almost worse because he did it in 2022. He flirted with Auburn. The team lost focus. 2025 Ole Miss, they have their best record ever. They're having their best season ever. They're in line to host a college football playoff game, which I think they will probably still get that opportunity. But you were not only flirting with one job, you're flirting with two of them. And clearly, Ben Garrett has been vindicated, and you cannot, in fact, turn a hoe into a housewife.
Yeah. Man, everything with that situation is crazy. It's like, I guess from my understanding, the Ole Miss AD kind of forced Lane Kiffin's hand to like make a decision, and maybe that was the reasoning why he didn't get to continue with the team. But it's like, man, you only have one loss on the season. Like, everything's going right. Like, do you not have trust in your team? Do you not have trust in your coaching abilities or in your players to be able? I mean, you're leaving a national championship on the table. Not that any of us like necessarily thought Ole Miss would win the national championship, but if you're in the playoffs, there is a chance. And now, who's to say that he even gets that opportunity again? I know he's been a great coach, but I mean, sometimes karma has a funny way of working its way out. And like, maybe things aren't going to be sunshine and rainbows when he goes to LSU. I mean, it would be kind of funny. It'd be a little fitting. But it's just a crazy situation to leave such a talented team. I mean, it's just not a good look from the head coach. And that hoe to housewife thing, man, that dude, I mean, everyone is trying to say that he looks scared in the video and all that stuff. But I mean, like, no, I mean, look, what are you going to do when you have like 4 like armed guards right there, and the head coach, a high priority person, comes up to you and starts talking smack back? What are you going to do? Get in an argument match with the head coach that's worth like $10 million a year and that has these guards around him? No, you're not going to say anything crazy. But you know what? At the end of the day, he ended up being right. He ended up being right and predicting exactly what happened. And Tucker, did you see the things that Lane Kiffin was posting on his Instagram story yesterday?
Yeah. Apparently, Ben actually got a text from Lane himself with the hoe picture or the hoe hat in purple and gold with the housewife hat in red and blue down there on the bottom, which it's just it's comical at this point. Like he has not changed. Like that documentary that came out about him portraying him as this changed man, and you've got all these lies that have been weaved around about how, oh, my dad and I moved 17 times when we were young, and I've moved 7 times in my career. And we've realized the point of that is that we can spread our influence out on all these different people. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like some lie that Nick Saban crafted for him to bring up to media members when asked about this stuff. And speaking of media members, this is another thing that is very upsetting, because it's one thing if a coach in a group of 5 school is leaving for a Power 4 job. They're not huge rivals. You understand that they got to take that chance while they got it. Lane Kiffin is leaving for Ole Miss's second biggest rival. That is not at all the same thing. It's not at all in the same league. And all of these national media types, ESPN is particularly guilty of this. They are defending him, saying, oh, we have to fix the college football calendar. You should have allowed him to coach Ole Miss, and then let LSU go and hire him. No. That is not how that should work. They are covering up for the fact that Lane Kiffin is still Lane Kiffin. He will still try to drag the rug out from under you. Tennessee players were getting calls, texts from staffers on their way to USC saying, hey, don't go there, come with us, and just destroying the program. And Ole Miss did not let that happen. And I salute Ole Miss for not letting that happen, because it was a whole mess that has been created by Lane Kiffin at Tennessee. He could have created one at Ole Miss. He might have. We'll see. They promoted Pete Golding from within. But it just goes to show you that I think even though some of the national media types are doubling down on Tennessee not being right about Lane Kiffin, now there are more fan bases than just one in this conference that are aware of some of the atrocities that he can commit.
Well, man, there's multiple fan bases at this point. I mean, I forgot until the other day that Al Davis was all over Lane Kiffin, having PowerPoints talking about how bad of a person he was. And then, like, on top of that too, I remember like he was getting interviewed, I think when he was at FAU on the sideline on whether or not that he would be leaving them, and he just kind of dodged the question there. I mean, he leaves everywhere that he goes to and creates a whole mess with it. And then he wants to seem like he's a redeemed guy, or at least that's what the media tries to portray it as. Yet he does stuff like posting these memes about Ole Miss, a team that he's coached this entire year, like essentially trash talking like his players, the people that he recruited, the people that hired him there at Ole Miss. I mean, like if things don't pan out at LSU, I mean, who in the world's going to hire him? I mean, if he can't make it the next level, I mean, like you can't trust a guy like Lane Kiffin. And back in the day, you could give him a little bit of leeway, because when he came to Tennessee and when he was the coach of the Raiders, he was like 33, 34 years old. Like, I'm barely older than me right now, coaching, being a head coach of not just an SEC program, but an NFL football team. And you can argue that like maybe he was immature because he's younger, but he's 50 years old now. I mean, he's got grown children now at this point. And the dude still 17 years later, still doing the same thing that he did to Tennessee. I mean, and it might even be worse, because I mean, could you imagine if Tennessee had a chance to win national championship? Say Tennessee went 12-0 in 2009, won the SEC championship. Here we go. And then Lane Kiffin's like, nah, I've always grew up as a USC fan. Let me go to USC. Like, what in the world, man? I just don't understand the decision making. And I understand like LSU being a better program where you can get better recruits and have more money. I understand that. But when you have potential to play for a national championship, I mean, I feel like this just not only tells about his character, but tells about his lack of his trust in himself. Because I mean, I feel like he thinks that everything needs to be perfect for him to win when he has it going pretty good at Ole Miss.
Yeah, it's just, it makes no sense. And again, like I said earlier, I don't know why people are playing defense for Lane. He does not need you to play defense for him. we know what he's really made of, and the Ole Miss fans have learned that too. I think by hiring him, you kind of knew that was something that could happen, but they needed it at that point. They were desperate. They had been a program that was marred by NCAA sanctions. They needed someone to bring them back to relevance. Of course, Lane did that, but you just had to know, based on the history, that something like that could happen. And he started trying to act like that couldn't, and then, of course, it did. So, again, I don't know how he's going to have a real legacy anywhere other than just being universally hated by programs, unless of course he just goes out and has a generational run at LSU, in which case he may prove me wrong, but doesn't appear to be the case right now. And what's even crazier is just some of the things that are coming out about him and his time in Oxford, like the fact that the dog that he posted on Twitter all that time wasn't even his dog.
Really? I actually didn't know about that.
Or at least it was his dog, but he could no longer care for the dog, and the dog did not go to Baton Rouge.
I thought you guys were just joking about that. I didn't know that it wasn't actually like his dog that he was taking care of. Like, so he had to get rid of his dog at some point.
Yeah, something like that. Like that. Like he still made appearances during game days, but that was just to kind of cover some things up. Even though there are plenty of things about Lane Kiffin that are being thrown around out there, some of which I'm probably we're not going to reveal on here that are that are coming out around the internet at this point, but some of which are involving his family members too.
Well, I'm gonna have to look into that. But using a dog for clout, man, like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, man? I mean, he doesn't draw any lines, man. Any lines that are drawn, he crosses them. I just don't get it, man. Like, and I guess his legacy, like you were talking about, I mean, it could be being one of the best coaches Ole Miss has ever had, but they're not going to look at it like that, or they're not going to be appreciative of it because you freaking left when you had a chance to win a national championship.
Yeah. But we have been vindicated. We have been vindicated. And you know what? Ole Miss fans, let's have a little handshake here. A little handshake here to end the show, because you understand what it's like now. You understand what it's like to be left in the middle of the night by Lane Kiffin, because he poor Marty Smith, man. That guy was in the Manning Center for what, 20 hours basically.
I'd love seeing those memes of him where his like hair was growing out, turning white, and he had like a full beard. Man, internet's undefeated.
Yeah, always undefeated. But that introductory press conference today too was something. But we won't spend a ton of time on that. But no, it does make a couple games very interesting. I think they're supposed to play the Ole Miss LSU game in September again this year. I don't know when LSU is venturing to Tennessee, but I can't wait for that game just because of how intriguing the storylines will be once again with Lane Kiffin in town.
Oh, and it would be phenomenal if Ole Miss and Tennessee both just beat the crap out of him. And I hope the national media, I mean, I know you're saying they're pushing a narrative trying to make him seem like a good guy there at ESPN and everything like that, but I hope that the fans of college football finally understand why what happened with Tennessee and Ole Miss in 2021 happened. And it was much deeper than Lane Kiffin. I feel like maybe Tennessee fans deserve an apology.
Yeah.
In some rights, like,
absolutely they do. And if Ole Miss gets in a situation where they are, you know, a 5 to 7 win team for the next 7 or 8 years, then they will really be resenting him after pretty much going out not even on top, because he left before he could win anything big there. Honestly, like, his 2 biggest wins in his career are that Georgia win in 2024 in a regular season game, and then a Peach Bowl against Penn State. He has no other big wins to show for in his career.
No, and then outside of that, what's his like biggest accomplishment? Being undefeated against Mississippi State? I mean, I don't know if that's a really big thing.
No, because he lost to Mississippi State in 2022.
Oh, he did? I thought he was undefeated, or he won 5 straight
Yeah.
against Mississippi State. That's what it was, or
Yeah.
whatever. I saw some graphic somewhere. Maybe it was wrong.
He was 5-1 because they lost the game. That was Leach's last game, unfortunately. But good for the Pirate for going out with a win. But yeah, Lane Kiffin, not a changed man. That's our biggest takeaway from this whole debacle. Jordan, did we miss anything? I know we talked a little bit with Ryan about signing day and some other things there. Kellen Lindstrom and Jamal Wallace hitting the transfer portal, but neither of those are significant losses.
No, I mean, nothing I can really think of except that I saw that MTSU's got a defensive end that's apparently not half bad. He had 63 tackles this year, 6 for a loss and 2.5 sacks. His name is Anthony Bynum. I don't know where he's predicted to go, but he's entered the transfer portal, and I would love for him to come to Tennessee, but I don't know what the status is or who he's interested in, but you'd like to see Tennessee get a Middle Tennessee guy.
Yeah, I'd be happy to see that too, and hopefully a guy that dreamed of playing at Tennessee. Although now that we've seen some recent events unfold, it could be one of those scenarios where Jacoby Thomas was forced out because Boo Carter was taking all the money. Which, if that is the case, I'm really saddened by that. But that's all we got for tonight. We will keep an eye on the transfer portal as it continues to spin, and if any commitments come our way here soon. But again, thanks to all of you guys for tuning in tonight. Special shout out to Ryan Sylvia of Rocky Top Insider for joining us for the first half of the show. You can go check him out over there on RockyTopInsider.com. They do a fantastic job covering all things Tennessee, not just Tennessee football. If you're new here, please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football. On YouTube, we are live at this time every Monday at 8 Eastern time. We will be live again next Monday at this time. No post-game this week for obvious reasons, but we will talk to you guys again on Monday. For Jordan Binkley, I am Tucker Harlan. We will see you guys then.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.